Hey, you guys, it's Bobby here,
Stacy.
Stacy, and today we're going to be talking about three different topics, but they're all kind of the same, all kind of the same interlude. Laws of attraction. So, this was something we were talking about before we started recording. I had mentioned because you weren't that familiar with it. So, what I mean by laws of attraction is I had a friend, a high school friend of mine, that after we became adults and graduated and so forth, we lost touch for a little bit. I know when I came out, and she eventually came out to her family that she was gay, and I came out to mine a little bit early on. But it kind of seemed like we both kind of went through the same thing at the same time, and so we were kind of on a journey together. And then everything just kind of fell off. We kind of lost touch, if you will. But then all of a sudden she came back into my life. She met a girl, they started dating. So she was back into my life for a little bit longer. Then she left, fell off the face of the earth. And then the third time around, I was with my ex of 8 years. And she came back in the picture. And she actually came around the time when my ex and I were breaking up. And it was funny enough because she eventually married a guy and they got a divorce. So she was going through that. And it seemed like while we were going through this breakup, because she was filing for divorce from her husband, and here I was getting out of an 8-year relationship, starting this whole new journey, and it was a bit, I wouldn't say scary, but just something new. And I mean, you remember when all that happened. I mean, I was kind of a wreck. But funny enough, though, just to kind of give you an example of laws of attraction with everything that I've been talking about, when I think we had stayed in contact for at least a couple years while both of us were single. We both had dated different people, calling each other, talking about our dates and so forth, or someone that we might be interested in, someone that we were seeing. Well, she met this one guy, and it felt as though he was a good guy, nice guy. I met him, but it felt that he consumed all her time, and that's no fault of his. It's more of a fault of hers because she couldn't balance, friendship and relationships. So, and I kind of saw that as, I don't want to do that to my friends in the event that I ever meet somebody that I want to spend my life with. I don't, usually when you have a spouse, it does take up a bit of your time. You're not going to have maybe as much time to spend with your significant, or your friends, I mean. But it was funny enough, but my friend from high school, when she met this guy, I remember calling her one day, and we had maybe only talked for about 10 minutes before she said, I have to click over because it's it was her fiance, now husband, calling her, trying to figure out what they were going to do for dinner. Well, she never called me back. I sent her a text a couple days later. I mean, she didn't even send me a text. I thought it was kind of rude. And I said, you could have called or texted me back. I gave you 48 hours. Why haven't you gotten back in touch with me? I noticed that she was starting to fade away, as she did in the past. When anything good would happen in her life, it was almost like I was chopped liver and I was tossed to the side. So funny enough, a couple years later, because that did bother me for a little bit, but once I let it go, I hadn't given her a thought for at least a couple years. And then all of a sudden, here she is requesting me as a friend on some of the social media outlets that I had at the time. And then she actually attempted to call me and leave a voicemail. And with that said, it wasn't to be mean or vindictive. I just didn't want to bring that back into my life, because she had come into my life as quickly as she had exited out of my life. And I just thought that was not good for me, for my mental health.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like what we talked about in our last episode, having expectations in people, putting them on a pedestal. I very much had her on a pedestal.
Yeah.
And I knew that she was very much toxic for me. And, kind of going back to our last video when I had talked about I had gone through my spiritual journey, I became sort of a hermit. Like I just completely avoided everyone that was close to me because of what I was going through with my alcoholism. When I had gone through that, it was funny enough, the people that actually stuck by me, that had no idea that anything was going on, was you and a couple of other really good close friends of mine. And that just made me realize that everything, because I had my own business for a couple years and with photography and videography, and funny enough, none of them had ever called to reach out. I mean, I have the type of relationship with friends, whether they be close or not that close. Even if it was a business relationship, I would often call these people to tell them, hey, what's going on in your life? Strictly off the record of anything business related, just to call to shoot the breeze with them, to say, how are you? How's your family? And, a lot of people they don't do that these days.
Yeah.
But I've noticed that when I didn't give these people a thought in my mind anymore, they were all calling me. And I realized that those were more so transactional friendships, meaning like, what can you do for me?
Yeah.
Those kinds of relationships. And I knew that was very toxic. So I laid low for the longest. But the ones that did reach out to me during my darkest times were you and, like I said, a couple of other people that are really close to me.
I think that kind of goes along with the synchronicity thing,
Yeah.
Because it's like just when you think you're going to be fine, and you're content, it's almost like they're gonna throw a trigger back at you, you know?
Yeah. But we also want to talk a little bit about what was the other thing that you had mentioned?
Looking at stuff from other people's perspectives. I think a lot of the times it's like you need to look at something else from somebody else's perspective. You have no idea what they're going through. I think a lot of the times when I'm having issues with a friend or a family member, it's because I'm not looking at it from their perspective. I'm feeling like, oh, it's just about me. They're just talking about me, even though they could be going through something. It was just it was all about me, but
Right.
It's not hardly anything, that somebody else is saying to you or doing is even about you.
Yeah.
You just have to really hone in on somebody. You really have to feel it.
And then you talked something about mirroring back at yourself.
So, basically, if somebody's doing this, or they're having issues or whatever, or if you're having issues, so it's kind of like they're a mirror.
Yeah.
So you're telling, you're thinking a certain way about somebody, oh, well, they think that I'm, not good enough, or, something like that. And it's well, that's really kind of how you feel about your own self.
Right.
It's more understanding, or you've been triggered. Somebody else can be going through something and it can trigger you. You have all these insecurities or doubts or anything, and you're placing it on somebody else. Oh, well, they don't like the way I do this, or, they don't like this about me. But it's basically, they're shining it back at you okay, well, you don't like this about your own self.
Right.
This is where you need to work on it. People can definitely trigger you into, that kind of a spiritual healing,
Yeah.
So.
Ridding yourself of toxic people, things that don't serve you.
Oh, yeah. So, I've had a lot of very close friends, even relationships that, it's hard to say whether, they were toxic people,
Yeah.
or if it was just us being together as friends or whatever that is toxic.
Yeah.
So it's you have to decide, is it better for you in the end if you keep that person around? And, it's basically you're just constantly serving them.
Right.
They they never serve you in any way. It's
Right.
always creating conflict. It's always creating drama or something like that, and it just never feels right,
Right.
and it's like, trust me, it hurts.
No, it does.
hurts a lot to try to rid your life of these toxic people or toxic relationships, I guess I should say more, that, it's just, it hurts a lot. And you have to really, that's why you kind of have to go back to the perspective thing, because, you don't really know what they're going through too.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're feeling drained all the time by somebody, or you're just not happy, like they're not, I understand that people aren't supposed to make you happy, I mean, of course, like, people can, but you shouldn't look to them to make your complete happiness. But if they're creating the exact opposite, then I mean, it's time to let go. Of course, it's a case-by-case basis, there's friends, relationships, and of course there's some that you can't get out of. But
And I've had some too where I didn't come to the realization till later or after the fact. Like, I put up with it, I tolerated it, and I was so blinded
you're
by
so in it.
Yeah, you're in it, and then I was so blinded by the fact that, wait a minute, these people really don't add any kind of value to my life and to my happiness.
Yeah, they don't really, like, care about you. It's just like they're just using you.
Yeah, and I have met some that I feel like they cared, but were so negative in the sense that as much as I like them, I had to let them out of my life. I had to let them go, because I can't help you. You have to help yourself before anybody else.
Yeah.
I
think one of the hardest things is family members.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, there's so much pressure to just, oh, well, that's just how they are, like, just accept it. But it's like, if they're making your life, you know what I mean? Like, where you're not happy, and it's like, you can't even make yourself happy because they're so, then it's like, you have to let them go. It's hard. You might get a lot of, I guess, flack from the rest of your family, but maybe it's time to let those people go, because they just don't understand. They just think, oh, well, they're family. You just, family just sticks together, like.
Well, that's not necessarily true, because I've had to let a few family members go myself.
Well,
and, just because they're blood related to you doesn't mean that you're obligated to make yourself miserable by attending whatever family function you may have, or just keeping the peace among the family. I mean, you are your own individual, and it's up to you ultimately to make yourself happy. And I think ultimately we do need to be a bit selfless when it comes to giving back. I'm a big believer in community, but we also need to be a little bit selfish when it comes to our emotions and our feeling and our own well-being.
Yeah, it's a fine line too.
Yeah.
Between it, because it's scary, but if it's necessary, you
and you'll
have
know
to
when
work.
it's necessary.
Yes, you'll know.
You'll
when
know.
It's necessary.
I would say the moment you have that thought, that's a sign.
Yeah.
You
need to dig deeper and figure out if this is what needs to happen in your life.
Yeah. Well, that's all the time we have, but thank you guys for listening, and we hope you, if you're new, hope you subscribe and hit the like button down below. All right, you guys take care.